Jack didn't perform the song in the movie. He was making up little songs as he like worked, and he was singing along to what was on the radio. And that's what she's responding to when she says, "I like your singing." The problem is that like no one got that. So we're like, you know what? We might need to put highlighter on the fact that he's singing at some point. And that was all we really had. So we went back to Cincinnati without a solution per se in mind, but just the fact that, the awareness of a problem that needed to be solved, and put our heads together and came up with, okay, he sings a song. What song does he sing? Because I'll also tell you that Yellow Cotton Dress wasn't initially in the movie. It was a different song that he listened to when he was working around the house. But I just couldn't get clearance. So,
if I may, what was the song?
Nope, not saying that.
All righty.
So we're playing the song and all this, and we figure this out, and it's like, okay, how are we going to present this? And we're sitting there, we're throwing out ideas, and then I was like, hey, did you ever see the movie Stranger Than Fiction? And he said, no. And I said, well, there's this scene in it where Will Ferrell and Maggie Gyllenhaal are on a date. They go back to her place, and he's sitting on the couch, and he picks up a guitar, and he sings Whole Wide World by Reckless Eric, and she becomes enamored with him, with this new side of him that she hasn't seen before, and they fall in love. And why don't we just do that? So that scene is on YouTube. I showed it to him, and I mean, we did. We just if you watch the scene where he sings Yellow Cotton Dress now, we just basically like subverted it a little bit with a horror element of like her, advancing in, and like, it feels a little creepy, and like he feels something but he doesn't see anything. But yeah, like that's the only actual like homage, if you want to say. That's like the only ripped off. But like everyone is just like, so the scene is the second dream when he's like serving himself at the bar. That's just The Shining, right? And with like a little bit of it. And I'm like, no, but it makes total sense because I wrote that like on site. Like we were just like, what would she have been? Like what are people afraid of? And I was like, I don't know, spiders, clowns. And then he contributed a massive encroaching tidal wave and Bob's your uncle. There's the scene. So it's I mean, it is really funny because people are just, it's always kind of the first the immediate response is, oh, like, was this a reference to that? And it's like, I mean, I guess so, in kind of a subconscious way. But I really, outside of that one when they're singing or when he's playing the guitar, there isn't really a conscious effort to reference anything. But it's, of course, there.
Yeah, I think when you are, I mean, everything that Adam said, when you are a writer, and especially when you're a writer that's also a cinephile, like, it's almost impossible for that not to come out on the page because, like he said, you just have a shuffle of scenes and songs in your head, and it's really quite exhausting after a while. But yeah, when at least speaking for myself, when I sit down and write, very rarely am I like, well, I'm gonna write this like the Western that I'm finishing up writing right now. Not one point have I been like, I need to go and watch The Good, Bad, the Ugly and see what works and see what I can filter into my own script. It's just not so. It's not to say that that people might not find that beneficial. It's just for me at least, and clearly Adam, like it's not a thought that ever enters. You just when you're writing, you're writing. This is you. This is personal. So, great answer, sir. Stefan, fellow Ohio native, Stefan would like to know what prompted you to shoot in Cincinnati. And was that house always in mind from the jump, or did that location come later?
I was prompted to shoot in Cincinnati because I'm from Cincinnati. I grew up in northern Kentucky, but I lived in Cincinnati a bunch and kind of, a few places around town. I was living there at the time, and it was, I knew the town, I knew the people. it was where, if I was from Minneapolis, it would take place in Minneapolis. So that was really, and then because I'm from Cincinnati, there's this relationship, because there's always been movies shot in Cincinnati and set in Cincinnati, but like, you watch Milk Money, you watch Airborne, it's like, this could be anywhere. Because it's people coming in, they don't have the relationship to the town that a native would. And so I wanted to kind of make a really Cincinnati movie, a movie that, that embraced being there. So from the shirts to some of the references and dialogue, I wanted to make something that was from my home. Because I don't live there anymore, and it's kind of a nice like celebration of like, I'm very proud to be from where I'm from. I love Kentucky and I love Cincinnati. I think they're amazing places that get kind of a bum rap sometimes. Often by their own design, to be fair. But yeah, it's kind of like, it's like being a sports fan. A lot of sports fans are toxic assholes. And so while I might love the Kentucky Wildcats, I do not necessarily want to be grouped with fellow Kentucky Wildcat fans, because many of them are terrible. But I know that there's other people like me, people that, so I wanted to make something that kind of embraced the spirit that, just isn't out there shouting on a street corner. Yeah, I think that's why. Hello Ray. Raymond asks, why have the main character die at the end versus having him take on the lease for the house, living with the ghost, and protecting her property? Adam, I'm going to take this one because it's a goddamn movie, Ray. It's a movie, Ray. Well, also, I mean, if he remains in that house as a living entity, she hasn't done her job and will become a shadow. Like...
and she explained what it is to be a shadow, Ray. She explained.
Yeah. I mean, it's fair because it is it's not an ending that you're going to see in a lot of places. One of the really nice things about working with a very small budget is that you don't have to worry about the 4 quadrants. And, when you're making something for less than the cost of a base level Mercedes, you don't have to worry about 1 quadrant. I joke to MacLeod all the time. We made a movie for 9 people. And it's been amazing to see that it's actually for many more than that. But, it's a really delicate thing to talk about, alienation. And profound loneliness and feeling like you don't have a place in the world, especially as you get into your 30s. And by this point, society tells you that you should have some of this shit figured out, and you don't. And it just starts feeling like everyone's living in a world, like a different world, like it's all a game, like you walk out and it's just like, well, why are they able to do this and I'm not? Why doesn't, capitalism or just society function for me the way it seems to for others? And that is, of course, a question of perception, obviously, or in perspective. We don't know everybody else's journey and struggle, so we just see, it's like social media. We see the good stuff because nobody's posting, hi, I want to die. I mean, now they kind of are because mental health has been destigmatized so much more so than when I was a kid. But yeah, I knew that we would get to do something very, again, kind of like with the black and white. This might be my only chance, not just to make a movie, but let's say this thing actually goes somewhere and I get to make another movie. There's no way I get to make this ending. There's no way I get to do something this specific, because the second you put another comma in that budget, people have notes. I was very fortunate that our investors, had never invested in film before, and one of them probably won't ever again. Not to say she didn't. It was my mom. She had a really good time doing it, but she's also like, no, you're my kid. I'm not going to be a film investor now. I did this for you. And F. Thomas loved it and wants to continue investing. But like, both of them were just like, I don't know, here's like a relatively small check. Just let us know when you're done. Let us know how it's going, but like,
Well, I guess I'll kind of tack on to that question, because I remember thinking it the first time I watched it. Was that ending always in mind, or when I thought that it was going to end, again, the first time that I watched it, Jack leaves so that she can do her job? Was that ever kicked around at all?
So the original, this has been the ending for a very long time, but there was a different ending at one point, very early on. I don't even think I ever actually scripted it. I just wrote it like in my notebook. But the original ending that I had for this movie was that, because the general idea with Ghost is that they're bound here by unfinished business. And Jack helps Muriel resolve her unfinished business, because that's what Jack does. He helps people. And Muriel is then able to leave, because that's what people do. They leave Jack. And I had this thought, I wrote it out, and then my buddy T.T. Sternenzi, who's a film critic and festival programmer in Cincinnati, we went to a press screening, and afterwards we went out for lunch. And I was like, hey, I had this idea, and like I told him that ending, and there was just kind of a beat, like a little silence, and both of us were like, yeah, you can't do that. Like, people would be really upset if you do that. And because part of it is that it's so small, it's so like, oh, the world is against me. And that's not I wanted, kind of like I said with the soundtrack, you think about what you want a movie to be. I wanted something that was a bit more transcendent. I love it when a movie just opens up more and more and more, like The Fountain, where it's just like, oh, this isn't even about like these two. This was about love overall in, time and space. So I knew that I needed to come up with something that was just bigger, that spoke to a greater humanity than just, people leave me, I'm sad.
Yeah. I mean, just because, like I said, the first time I watched it, I was just like, that was my first thought, was he left out of love for her. So I just curious if that was ever kicked around, because obviously the ending to me is it really that rug really tied the room together, did it not? That's kind of the way that I look at it. So
it's funny, the movie showed at Nevermore Film Festival, and Nevermore did a really great job of kind of fostering a community online between the filmmakers, which I really appreciate. I got to know Robert Woods, who directed An Ideal Host, and we were talking about like watching each other's movies, and he's like, "Yeah, I showed A Ghost Waits to a bunch of people, and we like talked for hours afterwards." And I was like, well, "You can't tell me that and then not tell me what the discussion was. Like, come on." And he said, "Well, as we were watching it, like early on, or very early on, one of the people in the room said, I love this, as long as he doesn't kill himself to be with her." And I was like, so how did that go? And he's like, yeah, it was a long conversation.
Oh, shit. All right. So this is a really good one. Justin asked, Justin, the gentleman who asked this question, did the theme music that you heard earlier you've been hearing for years at this point now. Justin asks, were there a lot of makeup tests for Muriel before you decided to go with the design that you went with? For example, the veins, was this all pre-production that you wanted to see, or was this on set figuring it out, indie DIY style?
Justin, the answer is yes. It's both a little bit, but more so the former. So, fun story. we shot this movie at the same time that John Travolta, John Gotti movie was shooting in Cincinnati.
Yeah, one of the best movies of all time.
Yep.
Yep.
You gotta ask all 5 boroughs.